Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with Dawn Vision Hypnosis here to talk to you about how anorexics and bulimics can be totally healed from their respective eating disorders with hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming. It's very fascinating to actually think about how these patients, or if you're one of these patients, how you go about doing your self-harming behaviors. And you know what those self-harming behaviors are. It has everything to do with either restricting your food, eating too much food, and then purging your food, restricting and purging. It has to do with cutting in some cases. It has to do with over-exercising. I was actually, many years ago, a member of a health club, and I was on a treadmill with a young lady. She was like 18 years old or so, who was really going full out. And I could tell that she's pushing herself so far that she's going to basically pass out if she didn't stop. So I told her, I said, look, I think you're overdoing it. I want you to just feel what you feel inside yourself. And when it feels like it's too much, you're pushing yourself too hard, get off, because you don't need to pass out here. That would not be a good thing. And luckily she heard me and she stepped off and went to go do something else. Because we understand why you do all these self-harming behaviors, at least I do. It has everything to do with calming yourself and your mind and the things that you do not want to be thinking about yourself. In fact, all of my clients with eating disorders, every single one, did not say they hated themselves. They said they loathed themselves, Loathed, which is a really strong word in terms of how much they really did not like who they were as people. But this is the thing. You're all in a hypnotic state as you're doing these self-harming behaviors. And for those of you who are young, 25 years old for females and 26 for males, you're in a hypnotic state 24/7 because your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed yet. And this is why I find it rather insane when I have parents of teen boys in particular who think they can just tell their sons to not do something and they think they're not going to do something. No, they're impulsive. It is because their prefrontal cortex is not developed fully yet. And that's why parents are parents for the amount of years they need to be parents. That means giving structure. And that means if a kid is out of line, there needs to be something done about it to hold them accountable. So they learn, because they're not going to learn any other way. It has to be done by the parent or the guardian or whomever. So those of you who are over the age of 25 or 26 are in the hypnotic state while you're doing the self-harming behaviors, both males and females. And that's a really beautiful thing in the sense that you've already trained yourself how to go in the hypnotic state really quickly. So it takes no time for me as the hypnotist working with you to help you to heal the underlying problems that are causing the self-loathing feelings on your part and the need to control your life through these self-harming behaviors. Now, what conscious therapists are incapable of doing is doing this kind of work. They've never learned it. And for the folks out there who are, shall we say, specialists in the treatment of anorexia and bulimia, who are getting burned out, don't understand why they're doing work with their patients and it's not helping their patients move forward at all, and are really frustrated. The good news is that I have a training program that I developed in a master's program in instructional design and technology based on adult learning, and including all the things that you already know from your academic career to become a state licensed mental health provider, yet helping you to take that knowledge light years ahead of what it is that's being done in the treatment of these particular patients. Because quite frankly, there is no empirical evidence to prove that anything that is being done now in treatment programs actually works. There is none. I've done the research on all this. So maybe that's why what you're doing isn't working. You're talking prefrontal cortex, which is the conscious mind. You know this through brain scans done over the last 15 years. And the prefrontal cortex is where we're reasoning, where we're judging, where we're rationalizing things. So when you talk to your patient about shifting their thinking or thinking before they do certain things and trying to do the CBT with them, and you're wondering why it's not working, that's why it's not working. Because they reason, rationalize, and excuse themselves from doing it all. Because, number one, they don't have the identity yet that you want them to have. You see, you know that they identify as an anorexic or bulimic. So as long as they're identifying in that way, what makes you think that they're going to be able to do something that is counter to that identity? So the first thing we have to do is we have to help them to shift their identity from a person with anorexia or bulimia to a person with all these really cool talents and interests and creative aspects. All of my clients with eating disorders are really, really creative people. And they're usually in jobs, if they have jobs, doing creative things. So we need these people. So shifting the identity comes from helping them fall back in love with themselves. In fact, when I had my very first anorexic client call me to work with me, she didn't come out immediately and tell me she was anorexic. She told me that she saw herself in a smoking cessation brochure for hypnosis at Harvard University, where she was attending classes at the time. And she could see how smokers had these compulsive thoughts that led to their impulse to continuously light up. And she realized that she was doing this every time she went to her neighborhood 7-Eleven, walked around the store, bought the bread, went home, put down a bunch of newspapers, sat on the newspapers, and took the bread out, slice by slice, chewed it, and then put it on the newspaper to all be dumped when she was done. And she wanted to stop this behavior. And that's when she called me. So when she told me about that behavior, I asked her if she had a history of eating disorders, and that's when she told me that, yes, she was diagnosed with anorexia. Now, that particular client had a lot of other issues because, well, you don't develop an eating disorder just because. You develop it because you have emotional trauma. And a lot of it has to do with living in perfectionistic households where the child is basically told that they have to reach the highest levels of performance or they're not given any kind of credit for what they've achieved. And I've seen this over and over and over again with the anorexic clients. So don't tell me that doesn't exist. They tell me. I believe my clients, okay? That's the difference. I believe them. And I take their information. And what I do is I create a detail from the detailed personal history where I get their information. I create their treatment plan, all individualized, because every history is different. And this is like really, really, really important. Yes, there's themes that are similar with people who have similar problems, like anorexics and bulimics, meaning anorexics are one type, bulimics are the other type, but they each have a different history. So we have to work with that history and help them clear the emotional traumas that cause the development of their anorexia or bulimia so that they can let all that stuff go. And then we have to help them forgive the people they felt harmed them, including themselves. And then we have to help them appreciate the people who are there for them, because interestingly enough, most folks don't even realize all the people who are in their lives who appreciated them. I had a gentleman who I worked with who grew up in North Dakota, a lily white area. He is African American, and his father raised him in this area and his siblings because he didn't want them to be living in the inner cities, in black cities, with all the gangs and all the drugs and all the shooting and all the rest of this stuff. And the interesting thing, and the reason I'm bringing this up, is because he didn't think he had any white people who he appreciated. And he had 22 of them by the time I was done doing his detailed personal history. Blew him away, most of them while he was in elementary school. He had teachers who really believed in him. He had people in his community who put him in commercials to do certain things because they thought he had a really great talent. He does have a talent. He's a great speaker, among other things. So sometimes we have to go in the subconscious mind to find those people who are there for us when we felt all alone in the world because the people in our family didn't get us, didn't understand us, made us feel bad about ourselves, etc. And then we have to learn boundaries because there's a lot of people pleasing going on. And one of the things that I tell my clients all the time is you don't want someone to get to know a facsimile of you. You want someone to know you as who you truly are with all your idiosyncrasies because we all have them. And that way you know they actually like you for you. Otherwise, you don't know that they love or like you for you. They don't even know who you are. Plus, it's exhausting. And these folks get really resentful. If you're an eating disorder person, you understand this. You live this every freaking day. You go out of your way to make a person happy. You never tell them what you did to make them happy. And then you get angry because they didn't realize what you did to make them happy. Because for them, they weren't looking for it. They were just living their lives. So we have to understand that people pleasing is not the way to get people to love or like us. The way to get people to love and like us is to be who we truly are and to make our needs known in a way that works for them. And I use a lot of neuro-linguistic programming languaging in order to help my clients to communicate appropriately and be heard in the way they need to be heard so they can create really great boundaries, among other things. And then there's the whole issue of what is your life going to look like once you're no longer an eating disorder person? Because you got to fill it in with something. And that's where the framework of all the work that I do with anyone and everyone I work with is this. It comes from Todd James, who's brilliant. Was because he died a few years ago. They need to get their positive learnings from their past. So we use linguistic programming techniques to do that really quickly and effectively. They need to live in their present and create their futures the way they want them. That means having such a compelling future that is more important for them to do whatever it takes to heal than to hold on to that old identity, which brings a lot of shame because they're living two lives. You folks who have these problems know what you're doing, and it becomes exhausting. You just want to be one person living one life. And what are these things that you want in your life? Well, you want to have a really healthy relationship with yourself first and with the people around you. And you want to be able to do the things that you really love, that you're interested in, have careers that are meaningful to you, because a meaningful career is the difference between being happy and fulfilled and being miserable. And as I say in the corporate world, putting the ladder up against the wrong wall. So they do everything they need to do to climb up this ladder, and they're miserable even after they make all the money that they thought they needed to be happy, but they find the money's not fulfilling. It's not about the money, it's about doing something that matters to you. And then your spirituality and hobbies. So many of my clients don't even know what their hobbies are anymore because they've been so sick and so stuck on all the eating disorder stuff. So we have to help them, and through hypnosis is really easy because all I have to do is throw them into a trance state, bring them to a beautiful place, and have them figure out what it is they really love doing when they were younger. And in the trance state, they can access that really easily. So when you put all this together, you can see how this will work to help someone heal and heal permanently. This is opposed to the treatment programs where they're told what they have to eat, how much of what they're going to eat. They have meetings all day long that they have to be involved in. They're basically stripped of most of their belongings to keep them safe. And they, in many cases, are not really able to live a normal life doing the things that they need to do. And the beautiful thing about my program is they do it individually. There's another thing, is that they learn from one another how to be totally skinny and destroy themselves even quicker. It's true of the anorexics, which is why some of the YouTube channels and other social media have had to get rid of these things. because it was really harming other anorexics who are listening to this stuff and picking up this really negative languaging in order to hurt themselves even worse. So it's best to work with them individually, so far as I'm concerned, so they can concentrate on their own healing process, live their normal life, especially if they're students or they have careers. You don't want to invade that space. That's the normal part of them doing their studies or being in work. And I learned this actually before I ever got into hypnosis when I was working with this older woman who was diagnosed as a manic depressive, which would be a bipolar 2 in her case today. And I met with her on Fridays, and I had a deal with her, and the deal was simply this. If you're going away to the Cape Cod, because this is in the Boston area, to be with your friends, you cancel the session. That is a normal behavior, that's normal things that you do, and it's fine. You need to be involved with other people. And she didn't cancel a whole lot of them, but she canceled some of them because it was important for her to socialize with her friends who were really supportive and loving to her and doing something fun. That's called normalization. I also told her when I first met her that my job was to have her fire me as soon as she can feel well enough to do that. And she flipped out because when you're in regular psychotherapy of any kind, that's the last thing they talk about. They don't have an end point. You just keep coming in week after week after week and telling your therapist what you've been doing or not doing over the week, updating and going from there. There's not a whole lot of consistency, whereas I have a treatment plan, so I know every week what we're doing when we meet, or every session. I know what we're doing when we meet, because in the beginning it's very intense when we go through all of the negative emotion removal and limiting beliefs and forgiveness work. That's all done within 2 or 3 really long sessions, 2 to 3 hours each, so that we can help them to get rid of that eating disorder identity, and then I can work on the boundaries and helping them with their compelling future, like making it a reality. And then the other problem is that the clients, many of them, don't even finish their treatment. I was doing a lot of research on this for my doctoral program and actually for my instructional design technology course to figure out how to best go about explaining why this training is necessary, filling the gap in the training. And the real problem here is that the treatment programs are not really meant to fit the needs of the patient. Not really. Because if it was there to meet the needs of the patient, they would listen to the patient and find out what the patient needs in order to heal. And that's exactly what I did, which is how I was able to create this program after working with the first 3 clients I had, 1 anorexic and 2 bulimics. In fact, the bulimics came to me because they both said they were worried about permanent damage to the gastrointestinal tract due to their endless purging, and they didn't want that to happen. And they were very clear to me in their cases that they developed this problem because there was a sibling that needed extra care. In one case, it was a sibling who was really overweight, had diabetes, and was going through a really hard time, and the parents were putting everything into helping this client. The other one had a disabled sibling that, again, took a lot of the time of the parents away from her, and she felt like she was like non-existent. So they develop for different reasons. We need to understand this, and this has to go into the treatment program when we're actually working with them, which is, again, why it's really important to do this stuff individually. I don't believe working in groups is a good thing to do with these folks in any sense of the imagination. I believe that it's much better for these particular clients to work individually for the reasons I suggested. So if you're a person who has eating disorders, I have the information regarding my program and a calendar link so you can make an appointment so we can see if you're a good fit for my program, because it's not meant for everybody. Seriously, I need people who are ready to heal now, who'll do whatever it takes to heal, are sick of having an eating disorder, control them, and not having life outside of it. And then for you who are interested in the training, there's a link there to learn more about that and a calendar link so that you can schedule an appointment again to see if you're a good person for this particular program because it is 12 months long, so that you have the practical application that you need to learn how to do these tools and techniques appropriately, so you can emulate the same success my clients receive from the work they did with me. That's what makes it a training. It's not a workshop. It's not a course. It is a training. And that means that I'm not happy until you're able to tell me, hey, you know that thing that you told me to do during that last call, it really helped my client, and thank you so much because it's worked. Or even better, when you're done working with your clients, 6 months generally for bulimics, 8 months for anorexics, oh my God, I can't believe this. This client has totally overcome this stuff. She's moving on. She's doing great. Thank you so very much. This is like, there is no money I could pay to be able to feel this fulfilled from the work I'm doing. And what happens is you feel energized by the work you're doing instead of burnt out and even depressed. So go to the description below to get that information. And I look forward to hearing from those of you who are really interested in helping save these kids' lives. We're losing 52 of them an hour because the treatment, only 5% go for the treatment, and up to 40% of them never complete the treatment for the reasons I gave. And 20% of them who even complete the programs end up with chronic problems, meaning health problems, and they are repeatedly in and out of hospitalizations, which is not particularly effective treatment in my estimation. So let us help these creative kids to move on with their lives. They deserve it. We need it as a culture because they're beautiful, heart-centered people. They're so creative. They have so much to add to our communities. And it's horrific that they get so little information given to them, time given to their problems. It's all about the obesity crisis today. But this is the other problem, especially with our athletes who need to be thin, especially with people who are looking up to models who are too thin to believe that this is healthy or natural. Although in some countries, I think in Italy, maybe Spain, I forget, one of the Mediterranean climate countries about 5 or 6 years ago, made it illegal for their models to be below a certain weight because it was causing younger kids who looked up to them to become anorexic, and they wanted to stop that in their countries. God bless them for doing that. These are the realities and practicalities. I'm telling you, I've done a deep dive on this stuff since 2017 when I went back for my first master's of 3 master's programs studying this stuff. So I hope you found this to be really useful, and I look forward to hearing from any of you who are ready to make the investment necessary. And trust me, for the treatment program, it's a lot less than what you'd be paying to be treated like crap and not heard and maybe dropping out prematurely. And for those of you who want to do a really deep dive training, I can promise you, you'll get exactly what you need because I've been doing this for a really long time, like 25 years. 20 years with the Anorexics, 25 years hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming for the general population. And that's only because that's when these particular types of clients came to me. All right, I thank you for spending time with me till next time. Bye-bye.